So as he's running to his car, I take the papers and I kind of do a little frisbee toss, reverse frisbee, and they go on a curve and they land right on his driver's seat. So as I watch the papers land on his driver's seat, I see him grab Glock pistol off the passenger seat, and he's got it right.
Is he pointing the gun at your face?
Right at my forehead.
Welcome to another episode of Cases Gone Wild with me, your host, John Marco. I'm an attorney in Michigan, and in my career, I've seen some of the craziest, wildest, most insane cases that you will not believe. And today we have a great show for you today. I have the Shark, the one and only, he's known as the Shark, Brett Baccari from Shark Law Offices. If you like our episode, please like us online, share it with your friends, get the word out there, so we can help you out and entertain, which we always try to do. Brett, welcome to the show, buddy.
Hi, John. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, good to be on. The Shark. So you are what's called a collections attorney. Tell our viewers, what is a collections attorney? Because it's a very specific type of attorney.
Sure, John. So my practice focuses on debt collection and judgment enforcement. So most of the cases that I see, the case has already been litigated and the judgment's been entered. The issue is the client hasn't been paid. Many cases, as you know, there's an insurance policy that's there to pay you when you win. The clients that hire me, there was no insurance policy or there wasn't enough insurance to cover their damages, and now they need to turn their paper judgment into cash.
Yeah, we talk about in the show a lot of time obstacles to justice and just how hard it is to actually win a case, right? Because you have to get through years of litigation, sometimes 5 years. You have to go through all these steps. You maybe even have to go before a jury. You have to go, then you have to go through appeals. What people don't realize is there's sometimes an extra step. Like we've gotten judgments on paper where the jury might say, your case, Miss Smith is worth $5 million, but then getting that money can be the hard part. Now, if there's an insurance company or a big entity, a big corporation, they have the power to write the check. But you come in when it's not that simple. I mean, when you might get a judgment, and we've had cases, I remember like somebody's pit bull mauls a little kid. I mean, we had a case like that, and the pit bull owner didn't have insurance. So that's when you come in, right? You have to try to chase the money and collect on the money, which is a lot of times harder said than done, right?
Absolutely. And in these dog bite cases, sometimes you'll have a homeowner's insurance policy. Maybe if the house is covered by a mortgage, the mortgage lender is going to require you to carry that homeowner's insurance policy, but sometimes there isn't a mortgage. In those cases on the dog bite collection, a collection attorney can be pretty successful because they can lien the house and potentially sell it, in satisfaction of the judgment.
Right.
So there are extra steps to do after the litigation. Sometimes the collection can take years. It can take longer than the litigation of the case. In most cases, it does.
And just so our viewers know a little bit, because we're going to talk about how we met, and we met on a collections case, and it's crazy. I mean, the case that I am so excited to talk about, our crazy case and how we met. But just so our viewers know, you are Detroit-based, right? But you do stuff all over the country, collections work, I understand. You've been involved in like Miami Beach stuff. You went to school at University of Miami, where you graduated in 2004. You have a good pedigree. You went to University of Michigan, and you've been very involved. And I got to tell you, you are the best collections attorney I know. And I've known a lot of bad ones. And look, there's bad lawyers in everything, but for some reason in collections law, I find like it's easy just to have a lot of bad lawyers. I don't know why, but it's like I've had so many collections attorneys on my cases who didn't do anything. And then you came along, and I think we got to tell our viewers about how we met. Can we tell that story? I know we got to change the names to protect the innocent here.
Sure, John, and I appreciate your comments because unfortunately, the industry, they do have attorneys that, don't put the time into the files and don't get the results. So I do appreciate your comments. And let's talk about how you and I met.
So I had a case, ladies and gentlemen, where it's a crazy case gone wild. My client was a nurse at a local hospital, and she was in surgery, and this old doctor came in who was probably was he like 90 years old or something? I mean, he was up there. And this doctor had a history of seizures, and he had actually seized out during surgery. So the hospital's solution was, we're just going to have a resident doctor, a young doctor, follow him around. So when he does surgeries, if something bad happens and he can't complete the surgery, this young resident can kind of step in, which is crazy. I mean, can you imagine if I ran my law firm and I was like, I might not be able to finish, but this guy's going to step in. So anyway, my client's in a surgery with this guy, and he starts to have a seizure in the middle of the surgery while the patient's on the operating table. There's a hard operating room floor. For those of us, I want you to imagine. Remember, they got to clean these operating floors. They get fluids on them and blood and all this nasty, gory stuff. And so it's a hard kind of cement floor that they can mop up. So he's about to fall down on the floor and crack his head open. And so as a good nurse, a caring nurse, a good employee, she grabs him from behind and braces his fall, but he falls on top of her, knocks her over onto the ground, and is now on top of her. Now, sometimes when you have a seizure, you start convulsing. So this poor nurse is sandwiched under this old doctor on the ground, and he starts seizing on top of her violently, ripping her body and smashing her head and body into the cold pavement of this operating room floor. She, in the process, rips her shoulder out and has a massive rotator cuff. So she comes to me for the case. Now, you would think this would be a great case against the hospital because they have a doctor who shouldn't be doing stuff, but we have workers' comp laws in Michigan. You can't sue your employer generally. So we weren't able to sue the hospital, but we did bring a claim against the doctor and said you were negligent. You should not have been operating with these no medical conditions, and you should have warned those around you about them. Anyways, we get a judgment against the doctor. I litigate this case. We get a judgment. What was it, like $1.5 million, I think?
It was up there, John. I can't remember the exact number, but it was high.
It was a big judgment, 7 figures.
Most of your judgments are high, John.
Yeah, $1 million Marco judgment, all right? It was $1 million plus. So we get this judgment, and now this is where you come in, Brett, because I'm like, this is great, but we didn't see any money for years. I had referred the case to another collections attorney who, like many collections attorneys, did absolutely nothing. And, I called them and said, what's going on? Where's my client's money? And he said, there's nothing we can do. There's nothing we can do. You got to close the books on this and write it up as a loss. So we did. We closed the books. And then, ladies and gentlemen, I get a random call a year later, unknown number on my phone. And it's you, the shark, Brett Baccari. And you say, hey, I don't know you. I've heard a lot about you. I know about your reputation. I got a lot of money for us. Remember?
I do, John. It's a call that really changed my career and the focus of my practice.
Tell us.
Because up until this time, I had been doing bank work, credit union work. I had started my own firm, and I was focusing on that previous line of work, trying to get my own institutional clients, going out to conferences, trying to buy debt to
work for the big banks.
Exactly.
Right?
And it was the first day of the stay-at-home order of COVID, and I caught a call from your former client, and
who's has very famous people in her family.
Right. And she didn't tell me, who she was, and she told me background of her case, and I drove down again the first day of the stay-at-home order, so I grabbed what supplies I could that I had hoarded for myself, and I took her a little packet because I didn't know how she was living at this time, and we met at a Staples, and we talked, and today she's a good friend. She's almost like a sister to me now, through this case, and collections is a data-driven industry. So through various data vendors, we were able to identify a lot of asset sources for this doctor.
The guy had a lot of money. He was at
did.
the end of his career. He
He
had a
did.
lot of money, and he had a lot of properties. But tell them how you ended up calling me. We have a mutual friend, Al Dibb, I
Sure.
believe. And go ahead.
Yeah, sure. So I reached out to Albert, who's been a family friend. He's one of the top plaintiffs med mal
Great guy.
lawyers in the community, and like myself, he operates a small law firm with limited support staff. And I reached out to him, and I told him the situation. And he said, John's up and coming trial lawyer. He's about to do very, very great things, and I think the two of you would really hit it off. I think you guys should work together on this.
Well, it's a great call to get. Like, hey, I found a bunch of money for you and for the client, right? Because,
Right.
I mean, she hadn't gotten a penny after all the stuff we had been through and all the pain and suffering she went through. And so tell our listeners what happened then, right? It was like a whole nother case. So remember,
Right.
we had already been through case one. We proved that the doctor was negligent. We got a big judgment, a millions of dollar plus Marco judgment. And now tell them how we collect, because this was wild. This was kind of my first collections case. And I'm like, this shit is wild, man. Like, you're about to hear some crazy stuff.
Yeah. So our first phone call. I mean, let's get to it. I mean, we're friends, but the first phone call was over a $500,000 garnishment hit. So I mean, we were pretty happy to talk to each other at that point. And then I let you know that it wasn't finished at that. This guy had real property across the Metro Detroit area. And
So
then
you had found $500,000 in a bank account, essentially,
investment
right?
account.
Investment account, and then discovered he had other properties that in collections you can attach to those, right, in Michigan, right? So
Correct.
you can make people sell their house or whatever, right?
Correct. Through various means. I mean, there's plenty of ways to skin a cat. That's one of the differences between different collection firms is some collection firms choose the easy route. When going after real property, we take a different approach. We place those properties in receiverships and we sell them quick.
Yeah.
So here we had a couple of properties in the Metro Detroit area, and then we had this obscure property down in Monroe County.
Oh my God.
And it was vacant land.
the burial site, I call
The
it.
other thing that distinguishes me is I, get out of the office, get in the car, and go look, see
We
how
drove down
these
there.
people I'm collecting against are living and what they're
So
up to.
just so our listeners understand, this is insane. This guy we found out did basically like back alley abortions back in the day, right?
Right. His nickname.
He was called the Butcher, right?
Nickname in the community was the Butcher.
And he was doing like back alley abortions, we think.
Well, he
And
certainly wasn't reporting his abortion clinic on his bankruptcy schedules. There was a period where he had filed bankruptcy and hadn't disclosed.
like cash for
clinic.
abortions, probably.
Right. It's
And-
heavily
and-
cash business.
And it was a Detroit doctor. And then he had this random parcel of like, we call it the burial site in Monroe, which is like 45 minutes south, which was just this like vacant land where you could bury some bodies, right?
It didn't appear to be buildable. It was swamplands. It was, it just didn't match the profile of how this doctor was living and why he would have a parcel down there. He wasn't, showed no indication of a hunter, a
Yeah,
fisherman. It was really, really suspicious.
And so we drove down there and we had the suspicion that he was burying these dead baby bodies, or however you want to call it, down in Monroe for this back alley abort. His nickname was the Butcher. I mean, it was insane. And so tell us what we did. How did you take down the Butcher?
So what we did is we put together a receivership. We confronted them with, what we were about to do.
He hired a big time attorney.
He did. We laid out our case against them, and they turned over every attachable asset that the doctor owned.
You had to sell the burial land in Monroe.
Sold the burial ground in Monroe.
Hopefully they could
sold
do something good
a
with it.
very beautiful property in Boston Edison District in Detroit. We sold 2 investment properties that had tenants in them,
Yeah.
and we took that investment account.
But it wasn't that easy, Brett. I mean, I remember because it was COVID, guys. So, I mean, this was in the beginning and they shut everything down. I was excited to get out of the house. So you did what's called a creditor's exam, and it's like a deposition, right? So tell our listeners, what is a creditor's exam?
So a creditor's exam is the opportunity for the judgment creditor to ask questions of the judgment debtor and require him her to produce documents related to the finances, income, whatnot.
It's a way to find money, essentially,
Right.
and assets, right? So the person who's owed money in this case, their attorney gets to depose under oath the butcher in this case and ask him, where's all your money? Where's all your assets? Where's all your property? Do you own this burial land in Monroe, et cetera, right?
Right. So some attorneys will do that creditor's exam right out of the gate. They'll ask the debtor to sit down and ask them, please tell me everything that you own so I can go take it from you.
And a lot of these debtors lie, right?
They lie, and it's also not a good approach because it tells them exactly what you're coming for. So
they can go get
like
rid
in
of
this
them.
case, we had already hit the doctor on his bank accounts. We had already liened his property, and now it was just time to sit down with him and see what else we could get from him. So you and I met down in Detroit, high-powered law firm. We sat down
at their offices,
and we just hammered.
And I remember going nuts for some reason. I just remember like going to their attorney. Like, I think I rode my bike down from Grosse Pointe because it was a nice day and I hadn't been out of the house. I think I was in like shorts and a polo. And I think I went off on the attorney and said, like, you guys are effed big time.
We demanded full balance.
Yeah.
We said, your client's going to pay this full amount.
And we did. That was kind of how we met. That was a success story where others had failed. You succeeded. You took down the butcher, right? You got, thank God, that land. Who knows how many other people could be in that land if we didn't take that guy down. And now you've kind of changed your practice because now you're helping people. I like to say, like our client who was hurt and didn't have any remedy. She got no justice until you came along. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so I mean, it changed the focus of my practice. I walked away with two close friends, a client and you, John, and yeah, it changed really the whole focus of what I've done over the last 5 years with my firm. So
well, okay, what brings a Miami guy up here? Because you're a Miami dude. You went to school down there. You have a Miami vibe. For those who can see him on the video, I mean, like a cool vibe. So what brought you from Miami, and how was Miami when you were down there? Did you have some crazy experiences down there?
Sure. So I grew up here in Michigan, went to high school and college up here in Michigan, and then wanted a different experience for law school. I always dreamed of having my own firm. I wanted to do criminal defense. Miami was always, attractive to me. I had just been down there for the 2000 Orange Bowl, Alabama, Michigan, visited the campus and just fell in love with it. Applied to other law schools, but as soon as I got that admission to the U, I was ready to go.
Fun place.
Fun place. We won the national championship the first year I was there. Best college football team of all time, the 2001 Miami Hurricanes. And I always said it took a unique individual to go to the U for law school. Sure, we had a bunch of, your trust fund schools, trust fund kids from out east, but you also had, a unique group of, maybe misfits, prior delinquents, and
I would have probably fit into that group too.
Yeah, right? And that's the group I fit in with, John. While the trust fund kids were waiting in line to go to the club, we were there with the guy DJing the club. So that was my law school experience, and we learned a lot. I almost want to say we learned more outside the school than we did in the school.
Tell me some of the stuff.
Yeah, so we learned about police corruption. I mean, it runs amok in Miami. I mean, that was I'm celebrating 20 years of practice this year, so that was 20 years ago. I saw a classmate railroaded on charges of, resisting with violence when all he did was report, getting hit and hit by run. The cop surely went and got paid off by the pizza joint whose driver hit him. And, my friend gets arrested on the street, and we watched it all happen.
That's crazy.
At the time, he was a state attorney's intern.
Oh my God.
Told that to the police officer, but they don't care.
You could ruin somebody's life and
you
career.
really could. A close friend of mine, I mean, it's a famous case. It's, been depicted on Cocaine Cowboys. A friend of mine in law school, he was indicted along with his grandfather by federal government just to try to get a plea out of his father, who had been indicted on a cocaine trafficking case.
No way.
Just the extent that government was willing to go to, fuck with people.
Yeah.
I really learned that in Miami.
Did you meet any famous people while you were down there?
I did, yeah. So my law school experience started, about 2-3 weeks in. We had already identified the happy hour spot for University of Miami. Used to go to Coconut Grove, was the college scene. So there's a place called Monty's Raw Bar, and we had already gotten to know Julio, the bartender. And Julio called us up one night and showed us he had some seats reserved for us. And we sit down, and he said, "Look to your right." And it was O.J. Simpson.
No way.
And, yeah.
OJ.
And really, that's what got me to law school was, like an interest in the O.J. case. I was in high school at that time.
Oh, dude, it was a big case. I remember as a kid, we were glued to our TV screens because it was one of the first major trials that was fully televised. And it was it was drama. We had the dream team of lawyers. I mean, it was, regardless of how you felt about it, and it was also racially, divisive,
Of
right?
course.
And you'd have people say, "Oh no, he's guilty. Oh no, he's not guilty. Support OJ, fry OJ." But regardless of how you felt about it, it was captivating. I mean, and to watch Judge Odo and Marsha Clark on the prosecution, and then all the crazy shit. I mean, I remember as a kid, that white Bronco scene where OJ's in the Bronco, he has a gun to his head. He said he's going to kill himself. And OJ was a famous guy that we had grown up playing Tecmo Bowl, watching OJ Simpson. I mean, he's a famous guy. And for those young people, if you don't know OJ, I mean, he was accused of killing his wife, who was like a model. It had all the, it was a good celebrity, crazy, enthralling story.
Right. And it captivated me as a high school student. I record it during the day on ETV and come home and watch it. So here I am in Miami, and there's OJ, the guy that, drew me to law school, sitting next to me, drinking pina coladas with Grand Marnier floaters. So
what is that? It's
a pina colada with a Grand Marnier poured on top.
Was he getting messed up or what?
Yeah, so we drank 2-3 hours together, going back and forth
with
buying
OJ?
each other drinks, and his girlfriend, was a mimic of Nicole Brown Simpson, looked identical.
Like a model, Miami model type.
Identical to his.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And I mean, ironic, she went missing the next week, but then did turn up. But
oh my God.
It was an interesting start to law school, and kind of, showed me what I was in for my Miami experience. And
that's wild, man. I went to school in DC. We had some fun. We had DC fun, but it was a lot more uptight and does not sound as much fun as the Miami scene. We definitely weren't rubbing shoulders with OJ. It was politicians, and they're not that fun to hang out with, politicians, John.
So Miami was fun, and eventually it came a time to leave Miami. So I lived there in my 20s and 30s. Eventually I made my way back here to Detroit. But
you started your first case as a law student, didn't you?
I did. So I was working in Florida at a plaintiff's law firm. My first job was a plaintiff's lawyer, and part of what we were doing in Florida had some very liberal laws on unfair and deceptive advertising.
So consumer protection laws.
Exactly.
Which Michigan is lacking. We have a good statute, but it's almost impossible to do consumer protection in Michigan. Right.
Florida is very good about taking care of their lawyers, and they do that by putting attorney fee provisions in their statutes. It gives.
So if the client wins, the other side has to pay the attorney.
Right.
Rather than the client. Because normally here, normal case, client's got to pay me, right? My client has to pay me, right? So
exactly. So in Florida, and that's part of where my respect for, plaintiffs, lawyers, civil rights lawyers like yourself comes from. I mean, if it weren't for those lawyers, prosecuting those cases, those claims may never be prosecuted if it wasn't for an attorney's fee
Yeah, right.
provision.
And the idea is that certain types of cases that no lawyer would ever take because of money. I mean, we talk on this show a lot. Money motivates people to do things. It motivates people not to do things.
Right.
And when they had like these, even the civil rights statutes, right? So they had, let's say that you're an African American and you go to the lunch counter. I know that's like an old school analogy, but you go to the lunch counter and they say, we don't serve blacks here. And they turn you away. A lot of lawyers would not take that case because they're going to say, yeah, that's wrong. It's illegal, but how am I going to get paid? So they put in these laws, if I would take that case and win, then I get paid by the other side.
Correct.
So it motivates lawyers to take cases to fight injustice that they would not otherwise take because would go bankrupt if we took the cases, right? You know what I mean? So yeah, sorry to interrupt you. So go ahead. So
yeah, so I've been working mainly we were suing car dealerships who are, bogus ads, client would
like
show
what?
up. They'd advertise, a car for, $500 and then the customer would show up on the dealer lot and there's no $500 car to be had. Next thing they're upsold to a $1,500 car and
yeah, just lying.
right.
Yeah.
Blatantly.
Yeah.
So it was St. Patrick's Day. I've been practicing law less than a year.
Yeah.
And local bar had advertised $1 Irish whiskey, $1 green beer.
Okay.
And across the street from
That's a good deal.
it was a great deal.
$1 for Irish whiskey? Okay.
First year lawyer practicing in Florida. I mean, we didn't make big money. So
yeah.
that was the place to be for us on St. Patrick's Day.
Hey, man, I was right there with you, but I was sitting at a bar in Detroit making no money.
Right. So across the street was an Irish bar, retail prices. So we were going to go, start our evening
at
for
the
$1.
Bar. Yeah.
And then
they
make
go to
our
the
way
nicer
across.
bar.
Right. So,
yeah.
so we did, and we walked in, and waitress asked us, what are you guys having? And they had their advertisement there for the $1 Irish whiskey, and we ordered 2 $1 Irish whiskeys. She asked how we'd like it. We said, "Put on the rocks is fine." And she said, "Well, you have to choose a mixer." And I don't generally drink. We've gone to Ireland before. You've seen me drink. You've seen the face I make when I drink Irish whiskey. I'm not a whiskey drinker, but I know nothing really mixes well with whiskey.
You don't mix much with Irish whiskey.
So
it's not like a bourbon or something.
So it really struck us as weird. And I said, "Well, how much for just the Irish whiskey?" And she told me $4.25 or whatnot. I look around and, the place is packed of people. And I'm sure many of those people were expecting $1 Irish whiskey also. And I don't know how many of them were refused, but she refused us. So I took it to my firm the next day and we filed a lawsuit.
And said, you advertised $1 Irish whiskey and you didn't give us $1 Irish whiskey.
Right.
So what happened?
Well,
this was your first case, right?
This is the first case that I had generated. This is the first case that I had, found on my own. Sure, I'd been working some files that, we had at the firm, but this was the first case that, I had brought in.
Yeah.
And the only case I've ever been a party to. So,
and you're representing yourself, right? Or did you find somebody? Did you represent? Your
I was
friend?
representing myself along with my firm.
Okay.
So, there was a real push from my boss to let's push this to trial. We have them completely. They had admitted to a conference call the day before about what are we going to do if people ask for $1 plain Irish whiskey? They had a whole plan. So, but I was young in my career and, I didn't want to push it too hard. So, I walked away with,
settlement.
Yeah, settlement under 10,000, but far greater than
$1. They should have given you that $1 Irish whiskey.
They were enjoined from ever offering $1 Irish whiskey again and refusing to serve it on the rocks.
Okay,
so I did.
Like it.
We did check in on them every year to see if they were complying,
and they were.
They were. Eventually, they went out of business. So
because of you put them out of business. They couldn't bilk those customers on Irish whiskey.
I think their deceptive trade practices put them out of business, John.
Okay,
And a good
I like
plaintiff's
it.
lawyer.
See, so you made a difference. You made a difference, and you changed the conduct of that company. But, and we laugh about it because, people might say that's silly. It's $1 Irish whiskey. But it starts there, and it always goes other places. I mean, like with cars or, other things that are deceptive. So, it's interesting, I always find. The ripple effects of those can go out there. All right, so tell us some more. Oh, and by the way, I'll tell you one story about. So this is not a legal story, but we used to have $1 Eucalypts, or maybe it was $2 Eucalypts, which was at Monty's in Grand Rapids when I was in college, at Aquinas College, and would go down there to this bar, and they would have $2 Eucalypts from like 7 until 9. Right. And the idea was they couldn't get people. They wanted people to come in to the club earlier because they had all their staff there, and, there'd be like 5 people, and then you'd stay. So we would go in, and at like 8:55, when they would say like, we're about to shut down, would order like 30 screwdrivers and say, oh, you said it's $2 Eucalypts. We're ordering them right now. So that worked for like a couple weeks, and then they changed the policy. They said each individual cannot order more than 2 drinks at a time. So it kind of ruined it, but we didn't file a lawsuit over it, but
We need to change the laws here in Michigan.
Change
John.
the laws over drinking. So tell me about some other crazy cases. You're on Cases Gone Wild. You talked about your first case. Have you dealt? I mean, collections is, I'm sure, a practice area where can be a lot of conflict, right?
Of course.
Because you're taking people's property. In some cases, you're taking somebody's house away from them.
Of course.
Their livelihood, their shelter. And so I'm sure that people go nuts. I don't know if you saw in the news recently over here in Macomb County, some guy was having his car repoed, so he didn't make his car payment. They send out a repo man. But before they can send out a repo man, right, they have to have a legal proceeding where a collections attorney comes in. Is that right? Or do they have automatic ability to repo under the contract? I don't know.
It varies, John. I mean, sometimes. So a secured creditor has a right to self-help repossession.
So like if you lease a car or something, or the bank has a lien on your car, they can just take it?
Right. The problems happen when that debtor keeps the car in their garage, or, as you're alluding to, straps a bomb to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that would require, usually the court would get involved. It'd be a claim and delivery case. There's an order entered, and then one of our fine court officers goes out and.
Tough job. And you have great.
Like,
tough job though. They're the ones. We sit behind the desk. We go to the court, get the stuff, and then they have to go out and physically seize this stuff. Which we should talk about that hookah case too. Now that I'm thinking about it, but in this particular case in Macomb County, the bank was seizing this guy's car, and he put a fake bomb in the front seat and put a note on the car that said, "If you repo this car, the bomb will explode."
Yeah.
Well, now he's in big trouble. But people will go to great lengths to try to keep the debt collectors or the repo men at bay. So do you have some crazy stories about that stuff?
Unfortunately, I do, John. I mean, I wish everybody realized at the end of the day, this is just money. But yeah, I mean, when you are taking people's homes, people's cars, people's wages, yeah, I mean, it's going to affect them emotionally. One of the things that I always practice with is respect. I think that's very important that you show, the other side, respect. And the more you show respect, the more respect they're going to show you. Obviously, there's some situations where a smile and some respect, just ain't going to be enough. So I can think of a time when I started my firm. I I hadn't poached cases from the firm I left. I wasn't poaching cases from other people's firms. Those were other attorneys' livelihoods. I sought out to, build my own business and find my own clients. So I went out to try to buy debt. I was literally, walking 8 Mile, going up and down the buy here, pay here car dealerships, asking them what they were doing with their defaults and if they wanted to sell them to me.
And just so our viewers understand, like, let's say that you're a business, you have all these unpaid bills, you get defaults. A lot of times they just sit there, right? I mean, nothing happens some of the times. You might get, and then, they can sell that debt to you and basically say, look, here, you go collect it, keep whatever how does it work? Explain to the people.
Right. So if a business wants to sell their receivables, they'll sell them for a percentage, maybe 4% or less to a buyer. That buyer pays cash. Now they're the owner of the receivables and they can, go collect it. That's how I started, trying to find clients and whatnot. Eventually I got my initial clients, and then it came time to serve the lawsuit. I didn't go get a business loan. I was doing this all with, what I had saved. And we were doing service of process with friends and family, and I'd go out there and drive.
So what that means is you would have to go out personally. Normally, like when I file a lawsuit, okay, like I just sued, huge. I just filed some huge lawsuits last week. I don't go out and hand the lawsuit to the corporation or the people we're suing. I go pay what's called a process server, who comes to the office and picks up the complaint, or we'll email it to him nowadays, and then he just goes and delivers it. Are you telling me that you physically would draft the lawsuit, file it with the court, and then you would go drive it and say, here you go, we're suing you?
So when we started, I wasn't exactly doing the service, but I was there with, friends and family doing the service, because here I just, scored these new clients, convincing them to go collect their debt. And here all of a sudden they're going to be confronted with, thousands of dollar service of process fee. So we attempted to see what we could do ourselves. So I was out, we were serving in Southfield, and it was a $5,000 lawsuit. It was a client I had on some volume, institutional client, sends, 15, 20 files a month. And I was serving a gentleman named Syed. So I walked up to the apartment building, the apartment door.
Where is this?
12 Mile in Southfield. Generally not a bad area, but there are some, seedy areas around there, as I know now. I knocked on the apartment door and it was locked. And then there was a gentleman at the carport nearby, working on his car. And I walked over to him and I asked him if he happened to know a gentleman by the name of Syed, and I gave him his last name. And the guy kind of ran away from me. So I was like, oh, well, I think we found Syed. So as he's running to his car, I take the papers and I kind of do a little frisbee toss, reverse frisbee, and they go on a curve and they land right on his driver's seat. So as I watch the papers land on his driver's seat, I see him grab Glock pistol off the passenger seat, and he's got it right.
Is he pointing the gun at your face?
Right in my forehead. Right in my forehead.
Did you think you were going to die?
Thoughts like that don't go through your head. Of course, adrenaline was rushing hard. He asked me what I was doing. I said, that's a $5,000 lawsuit, bro. Like,
not worth.
Let's chill. Like, let's calm down. Whoa. And he's got it right on me. And I said, I'm looking for a man named Syed. You said you were Syed, man. Again, it's a small lawsuit. And he says, and he gets that gun right up in my face. And he goes,
how far was it from your face?
About this far.
So
and he goes to me, you ever meet a black man named Syed? And I go, bro, I'm like, I don't think like that, man. I'm like, I have no fucking idea. Like, what the fuck are you asking? Like, I don't fucking know, dude. Like, I don't know who I'm fucking serving, Syed, I don't know what he looked like,
Yeah.
And my cousin was in the pickup truck, and he's like, get in the fucking car. Get in the fucking car. And eventually this guy just let me go. And that was that.
Was it Syed?
That case, it wasn't Syed.
Ah!
It wasn't Syed, but that case, I was bound and determined. It was one of my smallest cases, but I was bound and determined there's no way I'm not getting fucking paid on that case. So we found his employer, and no, his employer couldn't just garnish the wages and send me the money, right? No, this is the Syed case. So they refused to accept any garnishments from me. I had to go personally hand them the letter of failure. They refused. Eventually, we got a court officer to go in. This is a tuxedo shop in Birmingham. Go in there and threaten to take all the tuxedos. And I told him, I said, don't take the tuxedos in the front of the shop. Go take the tuxedos in the back of the shop with the tickets on them.
Yeah.
So they'd had the problem. So
we
got our money.
So when you serve someone with papers, are you allowed to, like, we see it in the movies, are you allowed to, like, throw it at their feet and stuff?
So it's within their control. So, I mean, if he's in the car and I put the paper in the car with him, I mean, but now, I mean, that was a lesson learned. I mean, this is early. This is like my first year on my own. So, I mean, we got we have the area's best process servers now. And
yeah, I would not want to have to do that.
No,
I mean, that's like ripe for conflict, right?
It gives
and
utmost respect.
Can you imagine getting shot over a $5,000 lawsuit? You know, it's crazy. And it wasn't even Syed. It wasn't even Syed. Well, we had some crazy cases also. Remember, we had the Mustard Man.
We did.
Remember that? Remember the Mustard Man?
I do remember the Mustard Man, John.
So this is a personal case. Okay, so there's a guy named Charlie Marcuse, and he was like a mustard man. Wasn't he for like Co-America or something? And then he started his own suit shop in downtown Detroit. Right?
He was the infamous singing hot dog vendor, John.
So I didn't know this, ladies and gentlemen, when I bought a suit from him. He did not market himself as the singing hot dog man, but he had a suit shop, and it was pretty nice in downtown Detroit. It was over on Washington Street. It was a nice location. It had full inventory of suits, and I had gone in and I said, you know, I just had a big case. I didn't have a lot of money at the time because I was, you know, starting my business. You know, you got to start like we started from nothing. And I said, you know, I just won a big case. I want to get a really nice suit to wear to court that I can really feel proud and good in. That's, you know, not from the Men's Warehouse or wherever I went, you know, to get the suits at the time.
He had a specialty, right? He like specialized in like an older, like a vintage style.
Yeah.
Right? And I think he had a big party to go to, and you're getting a vintage suit for that party, for that theme, and you needed it at a specific time, and you really relied on this guy to come through for you.
Yeah, I had like a December party. I forget where it was. It might have been like a Figer party or something. It was a huge, big about town party where there was going to be like cameras and our Detroit and everything. And he had told me, so I went there early, I think in like August, and he had told me, no problem. This is going to be the best suit ever. It's going to be awesome. And you had to pay up front. Okay. So I paid by credit card, you know, and ladies and gentlemen, this wasn't like a fly by night type place. I mean, it was a legitimate storefront. They had a couple employees there. So I paid by my Visa credit card to buy the suit, and it wasn't a cheap suit. And then I kept coming in. He said, okay, it'll be done in like a couple months. So I come in a couple months later, suit's not ready. Oh no, it'll be done in a couple months. A couple months later, suit's not ready. Oh, we have production issues in Taiwan or wherever the hell it was, or Italy. And so I'm starting to get real nervous because my event's about to come up, and I'm like, I need the suit. Oh, we're sorry. So finally, like, the event comes and goes. I don't have the suit. And then he stops returning my calls. And now I'm starting to get worried. So, I mean, where's my suit I paid for? So we go over there and the store's all boxed up. And all the inventory is being boxed up. And I'm like, dude, where's my suit? It better be in one of those boxes over there. Oh, no. We're going to get you your suit. Don't worry. Don't worry about all these boxes. We're just moving out. We're going to take care of you. And he was really nervous, right? Never got the suit. He stole my money and left with my money. And it was a lot of money for me back then. And I missed my suit for the party. I missed my suit for court. So I sued him, which is, what would I do best? And we got a big judgment. We got the jurisdictional limit in the court, which was $25,000.
You did?
And, because there was fraud claims in there and all kinds of other stuff. And then we tried to collect from this guy, and the shark was at it again. Tell him what happened.
Well, first time I took a look at this file, I was like, John, I mean, how do you expect me to collect this thing? I mean, one, we don't have no idea where this guy is. This guy is a hot dog vendor. The only thing I knew about him was that he apparently, liked to make kids cry because, he wouldn't allow them to put ketchup on their hot dogs.
At Co-America Park.
Right. So
I think he got fired for it, too.
I don't know if that's why they fired him, but, there were news articles out there. So all I knew about him was that, he made kids cry and that he ripped off my buddy.
Yeah. Google hot dog. What do they have to Google? Hot Dog Man Detroit or something?
Singing Hot Dog Man probably pulls him right up. So, I spent a good time just trying to find out where he was.
And I was so mad.
You were. And data vendors weren't hitting. Like data.
He was in hiding. He was like a fugitive from the shark in Marco. But we're going to find you, buddy. We're going to find you, Hot Dog Man, and put ketchup right down your throat.
And we did. We got him. I mean, it was like some obscure article in a magazine that like referenced like the Charlie Marcuse tie or something. I forget what.
Yeah, it was like an Our Detroit magazine spread. And you guys know how in those spreads they'll be like suit by, this designer, Ralph Lauren. And the tie, I think it said, by Charlie Marcuse. I don't know how you found that.
Yeah, it's just persistence. I mean, really, it's just being persistent on a file, not taking a file, telling your client this is a joke and putting it away and never touching it.
And I owe you big time because I know it wasn't a big thing, but I was so upset because it was a bamboozle.
Well, I was upset he had like defrauded my buddy, and and then so I mean we stuck at it. That article told us where he was working, so we pursued that employer. They gave us bullshit responses. Eventually, we just got to the point where we just wore him out, and he paid you. I mean, he paid you a ridiculous amount of money, far more than probably what you were out. But the purpose of those, exemplary statutes is to teach him a lesson. And he's not out there right now with his own business ripping people off, as far as we know.
And the sad thing is, if you looked on Google, he had ripped a bunch of other people off too, remember?
Yep.
He had ripped a bunch of other people off, which was a bummer.
There were those allegations for sure.
And his employees, too. But, yeah, so that was the Hot Dog Man incident, which was a personal incident for me. What about do you ever have crazy cases where, didn't you have something where somebody picketed you or something? Somebody had a picket sign?
Yeah, so one of my first collection cases, I was doing bank and credit union work, and I was representing a Catholic credit union here in Michigan. And, they don't discriminate by age. It was some gentleman in his 80s who owed on a personal loan or some type of a bank debt that I was chasing, and we had him in court, and therefore, a creditor's exam where we question him, and he produces documents, and he wasn't cooperative. And that was an issue before the judge, and the judge was in the process of, ordering him to produce documents. And as the judge was making that order, this old man blurts out that he finds it ironic that the Catholic credit union has a Jew for a lawyer.
Oh my gosh.
I'm Catholic. I took offense at the comment because, like we talked about, I've
it's
been in Miami for law
discriminatory.
school. I mean, most of my friends from law school are Jewish. Yeah, it was offensive. Well, the judge took this guy and he held him in contempt through the holidays from
He
Christmas.
said this in open court.
In open court. Held him in contempt from Christmas through New Year's. And, it was the holidays. So at some point, I'm feeling bad for the guy, sometime between Christmas and New Year's, I've been checking and the guy's still in there. Well, he gets released after the holidays, and the first thing he does is he goes and he gets a picket sign, and he pickets the Catholic Credit Union for like a good day, picketing the sidewalk outside.
What did the picket sign say? It didn't say like anti-Semitic stuff, did it?
No. It was probably targeted at the credit union. I can't remember exactly what it was, but
Yeah.
it was.
It's hard. Well, there's a lot of fraud, it seems like, in this whole collections business and all this stuff. I don't know if you remember this case we had, because where there was a hookah shop in Dearborn, and our client was in the hookah shop just sitting there, right? I think she was sitting at the bar or something. And one of the employees of the hookah shop, who was related to the owner, was playing with a loaded gun. Like flinging it around like he was out of some movie, like the Lone Ranger or something. And he shot the girl. He shot just an innocent girl sitting there with the gun. Do you remember this?
I do remember this one, John. And this is one of the cases where we talked about court officers, and this is, they're the bravest ones in this collections game.
Yeah. So we got like a Marco $1 million judgment. I forget how much it was. It was a lot of money.
It was
a couple $1 million for this poor girl. She survived. The girl lived, but she was messed up. She had been shot by a bullet at close range in a hookah shop. And this company didn't have any insurance, right? Because were they just opening or something? I forget exactly what was going on.
So we didn't really know. I don't think you knew. I didn't know when I initially got the file. I mean, all we knew is this was a hookah lounge in Detroit, which, there are several in Wayne County. And we got our court officer involved. Anytime there's violence, like, something like that, I'm always sure to tell a court officer, hey, be careful when you go in this one. There's, they may have firearms. So on this case, he went to execute order to seize property. He entered with gun drawn. He entered, and there was a firearm there. He was able to confiscate that immediately. So
that's scary. So he goes in, there's a gun.
Yeah.
So he basically had to collect on the hookah shop, right?
Yeah, and he's getting paid statutory fees. So,
he brought a truck up to the hookah lounge and loaded all the hookah. Didn't we have like a whole truckload of hookah stuff?
Well, we confiscated everything that was in there. So he didn't know exactly what's in there. I mean, there was, hookah accessories, stuff that looked like contraband, firearms, whatnot. But, that's one of the problems with these files is, there's no insurance, limited assets.
Right. What do you do with all this hookah stuff?
Right. So, we had identified pretty quickly it was an unlicensed dispensary. They weren't really a hookah lounge.
And just so they know, we ended up having custody of like bags and bags of weed.
Yeah.
Like massive amounts of weed, and we couldn't do anything with it.
Right.
Because
so we talked to the Wayne County prosecutor's
we called
office.
the prosecutor's office.
We're like, hey, this is what we have. This is what we would like to do with it. We wanted to basically try to get it to a
dispensary,
to a licensed
dispensary
facility.
Yeah. It's like, what do you do? We got all this weed.
Right.
We're not drug dealers, right?
Exactly.
Like, what do we do? First thing we did, call the prosecutor.
Have a campfire. I don't know. But,
yeah, right.
So unfortunately, that's a case where a client didn't get a recovery.
And we had to give the weed to the police.
Yeah, we had to turn the weed over to the police on body cam.
Oh my gosh.
We couldn't sell the gun. We couldn't sell the firearm.
We had to give that to the
now
police.
Out of business, and
that poor girl who got shot got nothing.
Right.
She didn't even get weed.
No.
She didn't even get any weed. Oh, that poor girl.
I think that may have been one of the requests the prosecutor's office is let us at least give it to
Yeah.
our client. But yeah,
They
no,
said
that
no.
didn't
They
sail.
said you got to take it to the police. That's a bummer. Well, look, we're going to end on one more crazy case. And it seems like a lot of our cases today involve me. But this is a sad case because I discovered that my office manager, who I'll say by name, her name is Erin Sailing, and she was stealing money from my firm. Now, this was a long time ago, but this was when my firm was kind of just starting out, right? And every dollar counted. And, running a business for people out there, when people steal from you, sometimes it's people who are in a position of trust. And she was in a position of trust. And I didn't know it because, I had a bookkeeper and the bookkeeper didn't catch it either. But she had been stealing from the business. And I know this has happened to a lot of attorneys out there. And I know it's happened to a lot of business owners out there too. But she had stolen tens of thousands of dollars from Marco Law in a time where we were just starting out. And I didn't know about it until later, but it was really upsetting. And what she had done in order to steal this money was use an Amazon account and ship items to her personal residence, right? So we discovered, and I have one of my attorneys, Gasper Starr, we had filed a lawsuit because we had discovered that there was money missing. We didn't know how much. It was like the tip of the iceberg. We knew that there was some money missing. We weren't sure how much. And we got these Amazon records, and there was tens of thousands of dollars of items purchased on the Marco Law credit card. And so the line would just say Amazon.com on the bills. So it didn't set off any alarms for the bookkeeper and myself. Right. Now we have better things. And now I'm more sophisticated. Look, I'm not a businessman. I didn't grow up with business experience. my parents are teachers. And, I didn't have a business coach or anything like this. I'm just trying to I just love the law and I love to help people. So we're obviously a lot more sophisticated now, but back then it was just Amazon.com. Well, she had been sending tens of thousands of dollars of merchandise to her home. And I'm going to tell you, it was disgusting stuff. Cock rings, dildos, lingerie, all kinds of weird shit, man. Like weird stuff. We're like, right. It's not even like arguably like a dildo isn't a business use, right? You know, so she had been sending this merchandise along with a lot of other embezzlement that she got caught with to my office. So we sue her. And I was actually going to let it go because you know how these things are. Sometimes you got to let things go. I understand there's the principle of the thing. But I mean, it's just takes so much time and energy, And so we were going to let it go. And then she lied to the unemployment agency and told the unemployment agency that, that she was, something I forget exactly in order to get extra unemployment. And finally I drew the line and said, this is crazy. She stole and now she's lying. And so you know this. So my attorney took her deposition and he had a spreadsheet from Amazon with the bills for all the stuff. Okay. These sex toys and all this stuff and all this. And he went through and he goes, did you ever take it? She says, oh no, I never took $1. This is frivolous. John Marco's, just trying to bully me, blah, 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 wham. Well, then he pulled out the spreadsheet and he went through it and said, on December 13th, 2000, do you live at this address in Roseville? Yes. Did you use the Marco Law credit card to send a, Phantom XXL dildo to your own home? Oh, she started crying. Oh, yes, I did it. I admit it. I'm sorry. I did it all. And it was like a Perry Mason moment. She admitted she did it all. She embezzled, which, by the way, very bad lawyering. Her lawyer should have said, this could be criminal. Plead the fifth. If I had a client who was, that's a fraud. Plead the fifth. So anyway, so we did the deposition. We went to court. In Wayne County, the judge entered a judgment against her. I forget how much it was. It was a couple $100,000, I think, dollars for what she had done. And now you're collecting on that. So, but it's hard to collect. I mean, we're still going through that right now, right?
Well, you're always limited by income and assets of the person you're chasing. So she was your office manager. You knew what you were paying her. You know what her earning potential is. So, 25% of that is what we're able to get on a garnishment. So what you do is you look at assets. So
yeah, not a lot.
When she got a job with you, you were able to help her buy her first house,
right?
Through the money she earned working for your company. Well, guess what? You're probably going to lose that house now.
Right. And well, the interesting thing is the engagement ring. I didn't know that this goes that deep. You can take somebody's engagement ring as part of a collection.
Yeah, so the first time I did this, it was a case in Grand Haven. I did a credit exam at the courthouse in the back room, and I'm doing an exam, and this guy's got this gold shooter ring on his hand, and I'm take out my cell phone. I took a picture of it. I asked him about it. He didn't want to talk about it too much, so then we went in front of the judge, and the judge made him take it off his hand and hand it to the bailiff.
In the courtroom?
In the courtroom.
Oh, that's cold. That's cold.
And what I was asking was, it was Grand Haven, a small town, so I wanted it delivered to the local jeweler. I kind of scoped out the area. I said, I want it delivered to this local jeweler for an appraisal. Let's find out what it's worth before we decide what we're going to do with it. If it's a $20,000 ring, yeah, we're going to do something with it. If it's, nominal, then we'll talk about it. And this guy was in absolute tears on the court steps with his wife standing right next to him.
Was it like a family ring?
It was very sentimental to him.
So I have my grandfather's ring.
Yeah.
And if somebody took this ring, I would be
right. So I could take,
so
knowing that about you, I would never take a case against John, but I go for that ring. I go for that ring because I know that's what's gonna make you pay.
That's cold. So what happened? Did you take his ring?
The invisible Porsche, but I'll take the.
Yeah. So what happened? So what happened?
So yeah, they end up paying, and they don't want to lose something that.
But did he get to keep the ring?
It went to the jeweler for an appraisal, but then they paid.
That's cold, man. That's cold. I think it's different. I don't know. Legally, there's no difference between individuals and corporations. But I do feel bad even if somebody did something wrong, going after an individual as opposed to I have no problem insurance companies, no problem big corporations who hurt people. There's just something a little bit harder about individuals. And I understand legally under the law and everyone has a right to a remedy. And I'm not saying like a mega mogul guy who's, screwing people over, this Puff Daddy's in the news right now, right, with all that stuff. But it just, it just feels a little sad.
Yeah. No, and I hear you, John, and that's why really, I follow that motto of respect. You treat everybody with respect, and empathy for the position that they're in. And really you get better results.
Yeah.
Doing that. If you're going to be hard with somebody on the phone and that's all you're going to be, then.
So let me add, what advice do you have to people if they have a judgment? Because, we're on the Marco laws for the people.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you have people out there who have a judgment against them for whatever reason, they didn't pay their bills, they got, they embezzled money from their boss, hopefully not that, but whatever,
right.
Any of that stuff, what recommendation do you have on how to get out of it the best way, the most respectful and painless way?
Well, first and foremost, don't risk your own freedom and possibly paying more by trying to hide what you have. Hiding assets is always a bad idea, because the right lawyer is going to find them and catch you. And
then do you get in trouble if you hide stuff?
Sure. It can cost you problems in bankruptcy if you previously had an out in bankruptcy by talking to a lawyer.
Right.
Talk with the creditor. Work it out. Oftentimes cases that I'm on, I'm the largest creditor chasing the person. they don't want to have the conversation. They'd rather, go file bankruptcy or fight it.
Yeah.
I mean, you can reach out, have a conversation. I have reasonable clients. I got reasonable lawyers that I work with. We can lay out, how much do you owe? How much do you have? How much are you likely to have? And how much are you going to pay?
Yeah.
If you can have that conversation, I mean, you're going to save yourself a lot of stress. If you're going to run from us, I mean, you're going to have a life full of stress.
Right.
We have private investigators. I mean, we have 3 data vendors continuously working all your public information. I mean, it's not a position anybody wants to be in.
Nobody wants to be in that position. And get insurance, people. Get insurance. That's what it's there for.
Insure.
Well, thanks a lot. And I will leave this. Do not put a bomb on your car, which now that guy's in jail. I don't know if you saw that in Macomb County, who put he said his car was booby-trapped with a bomb. Now he had to go to jail with like some terrorist type thing, because that's it's just sad. It's just sad. Well, Brett, thanks a lot. I hope you're never coming after me.
I appreciate it, John. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks. It was awesome to have you on the show. Some interesting stories, and I look forward to continuing to work with you.
Of course.
All right, I'd like to thank Brett Baccari, the Shark, and his law firm for coming on today's interesting show. Different type of law, different type of stories today. Thank you for listening, everybody. If you like us, please go online. Please give us a review, give us a Google review, whatever you do. I don't know what you kids are doing these days, but just get us out there, give us a shout out, give us your support. I'm John Marco. If you need help, go to marcolaw.com, marko law.com, or give us a call, 833-MARCO-LAW, M-A-R-K-O Law. We'll hook you up with Brett, anybody else who can help you out. I'll see you in another 2 weeks on another Cases Gone Wild.